All right, Lee. Well, I mean, we started off with your backdrop. I think it's probably a dream of every kind of athlete to have a backdrop like that, especially so you got every single sport I think I can see
Yeah,
in
we
there
do.
too.
We've
So
got all of them. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
It's funny because for those of you listening, it's a locker room, but someone said like, it's a nice man cave you got there the other day. And I was like, I looked at it. I was like, you know what? I did. I built a man cave out of my podcast background. And I was kind of proud of that. But yeah, every sport's represented. There's some jerseys that mean something to me, some hometown jerseys, but it's a cool thing to get to sit in front of every day.
So I see Phillies back there. I see Eagles back there. I don't see Flyers.
Oh, they're scattered around.
Yeah.
There's a Flyers behind the Phillies one right now, and there's another one behind the Eagles one. But
I was looking for like maybe a Penguins back there, but you probably wouldn't survive in the streets.
That wraparound jersey is about as black and yellow as you're going to get. You listen. Hey, you know what? When you grow up in the game, you have your team. My team was obviously the Flyers, but as you get older and you work in the game, you get to know the guys in the game. A lot of that hatred dissipates, and you have a mutual respect. So I always say I'm a hockey fan first, a Flyers fan second. And like greatness has to be respected, right? But yeah, I'm not going to put a Penguins jersey up on my backdrop. I'll put
yeah.
Well, it's
when
funny.
I played in Pittsburgh, we played Philly round one. It was like 2018 or whatever.
Right.
And my dad wanted to come watch the games. And there's actually some other parents on the team that were like, maybe don't go to Philadelphia to watch because like if they get any win that you are a player's dad, it's going to be hell for you in the arena. So
you know what's funny about that, Riley, is that people outside the Northeast don't realize the rest of the country is actually quite nice when you go to their arenas. Everybody in the Northeast from Philadelphia kind of up to Boston thinks like, this is the way it is. And it's like, no, man, you go to Dallas. They're very, very nice in Dallas. They're not going to rip your jerseys off. But I call it the Northeast condescension. It's a thing.
I like that. Okay, well, it's weird because I'm a complete Penguins fan, like do or die. So, I mean, the rivalry's there, but we always like to. We talked a little bit about you being a pure hockey guy, and I guess we're not going to dive into the every year of your life or anything like that. But I definitely wanted to, I guess, kind of give us the background of first off, why you're in this space, and also growing up in Philly. I mean, Philly is a pure sports town. I've never been personally, but like how valuable has it been to have that, just like that sports background to, make you the character that you are and have that, just have all that wherewithal in the sports world to, help do what you do now?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And I'll tell you what, no one's ever asked me about the Philly side of it, but you grow up in Philly. What do you grow up with? You grow up with Rocky and the weird statement that our greatest athlete's a fictional boxer. But you grew up with Rocky in that story. And, you learn about hard work growing up in Philadelphia. It's a blue collar town. And that's kind of the mentality of, we're not about stars so much here, but hard workers, Bobby Clark, Keith Primo, Eric Lindros. I mean, while they had stardom, they were known here for their hard work. So we had that kind of basis to start from. And I found hockey a little later in life, believe it or not. I was 10, 11 years old when I found rollerblades, and I didn't start playing until I was 12. But I just knew right away that this is it for me, right? This is going to be my life. And I got, keeping the story short, I got very fortunate. I got to play college. I had a cup of coffee in the minors. And then I found coaching. And I realized really quickly in my early 20s, I was coaching college in my early 20s, that I really enjoy this. I think I'm good at it, probably better than even playing. But like most young coaches, I made the kind of common mistake of, well, I don't need any help. I know everything, and I'm going to revolutionize how coaching is done. And that journey kind of began by, a lot of wins, but also a lot of personal losses and learning how to deal with players and just maturing as a human being. Now, my love of the game also expanded into businesses and into writing projects and broadcasting and, working in the game. I got to work, I told you, both in Manhattan for a while with the league and with the Rangers. And I always say that was the second half of my education from a city front, where Philadelphia taught me to work, but I got the honor of working in New York City basically right after 9/11 for about a decade. And to watch that city come back to life after that event really made an impression on me of resolve and just moving forward. And then as I get older and coaching and writing and I kind of stepped into the mental fitness space, the mental health space, And I realized that one, there's a massive stigma surrounding it that needs to be curtailed. Number one, you both obviously stand for that. That's one of the reasons you're here, and you guys have done an amazing job with your work in that. And I realized that in my job now, and kind of being a performance coach and helping teams bond, that's what teams basically bring me in to do now, is I'm the team bonding coach, for lack of a better word. I understand psychology, I understand people, and understand how the mind works. So I'm on a continual journey now to learn about mental fitness, to be an advocate for mental fitness, mental health, and to have great conversations, honestly, about it, because I think that's how you break the stigma. There's no magic button you press and then everybody's mentally healthy. In fact, it's not something that can be achieved, right? It's something you consistently have to work at. So I'm on that journey now, along with coaching, along with the hockey businesses, and just being a general hockey person. But
I think it all like correlates though, eh? Like what you do when you're speaking, what you do coaching, when you're coaching more individually, I think like what you're doing is amazing, because everything sort of, you learn stuff from all the different pockets that you're in, right, and then you can apply it to all your different experiences. What's the reasoning? And this isn't judgmental, I think it's great. What's the reasoning for mental fitness? You don't hear that so much. We had one guest on earlier, a little while back, and she used the same term. And I'm curious what your definition and reason as to why you use mental fitness as opposed to mental health issues or whatever it is.
Right. So first thing I want to say is there's nothing wrong with the term mental health, mental illness, or any of the terms. There's no right or wrong. Mm-hmm. The reason I personally use mental fitness is because I think people understand what physical fitness is. And I think people understand, you go to the gym, you work out, you're going to get stronger, you're going to be more fit. You stop going to the gym, stop working out, the opposite happens. I think mental stuff works the same way. If you work on your mind consistently and get mentally fit, you'll build tools up to help you through your day. Same thing, if you don't, the opposite happens. Now, with that said, again, there's no magic button. I'm not saying if you work on your mind and meditate or whatever that fitness regime is for you, that if you do that, you're going to achieve total mental fitness, right? Mm-hmm. It's about having the tools to help you cope when things are not so good, right? Like I deal with it all the time. I'm a very focused person. I'm a very present person, but that doesn't mean I don't have strife in my life. I mean, I've got 2 young kids. I deal with things daily. So for me, it's just about being in a mentally fit place and continually practicing tactics and things I need to do to get to that point. And when I work with teams and athletes, I like to bring a lot of that to the table. And again, look, everyone has their own way of doing that. Just like a gym, some people like stationary machines, some people like TRX, some people like the treadmills. Yeah. We all have to find it in our own way. But that's why I use that term.
Interesting. I like that. Yeah. And like, even for me, my first thought that comes into my head is, why you got into this space. Right. I think, like, from my perspective, the only reason I really got into this space is because, I understood how tough it can be, and how, I was diminishing my story. I was thinking, people are going through worse. I can just get through it. I can just push through. And I think once I started to come to terms with the fact that, I need to address what's going on. I need to address my own elephant in the room. And once I started to do that, I think I really started to, form those connections even deeper with the people around me. And then that's what kind of led me into this, and being in the mental health space and wanting to be in the mental health space. For you, was there a certain event? Was there a certain aspect of your life? Or was it a case of, you were in all these coaching spaces, broadcast spaces, writing spaces, and you were just seeing it all, and you were, firsthand, feeling that experience of people struggling and people not knowing how to take that next step, and and think of it as a way of mental fitness rather than I guess the mental health stigma. So my ultimate question out of this is, was there a significant moment in your life where you're like, I need to be in this space and I need to do what I can to help?
I mean, I think there's been several. I mean, and look, Ty, I'll tell you this, and Riley, you too. Your stories are incredibly inspirational, and your unabashed approach to sharing it is bravery to me, right? And look, Ty, again, your situation is not extreme. It is what it is, right? It happened, and it's like we all have things that happen. And what I find is there's even judgment on the severity of things that happen. And when you get into this space, you realize that what you dealt with and are dealing with is, it's insane on so many levels, but there's also somebody who may be having a hard time crossing the street, right? Because of anxiety. And it's like, it's not about, and I was taught this too. It's like, it's not about judging what it is. It's, we're dealing with it as people. So when you say what got me into it, it's a few things. One is I've always been drawn to helping people, always, my whole life. And when you get into coaching, that's part of the job is helping people. And then I've also had my own moments in life where I was brought to my knees, and some of them professional. I remember one point I lost literally everything I had professionally, which happens to lots of people, right? But the process of getting back up, there were people there for me. My wife is a real inspiration to me. She is from Puerto Rico, didn't speak English when she was young. House was condemned, and she found a way to get her way through school, become a doctor. She joined the Air Force, and we traveled the world, and to watch her do that selflessly, it made a major impact on me. And then to see underserved people or underprivileged people, and I remember realizing that outrage is not an action to help anybody. Action is action. And I realized that I think I have a skill set that I can bring people together. I've done it a lot. I find a lot of pride in that. And I just realized, I think I'm here to do that, to bring people together. And to do that, I need to understand two things. I need to understand how the mind works to the best of my ability. And also a big one, understand that I will never understand someone else's experience. And I think that that's a major mistake a lot of people make. There's no way I can put myself in either of your skates for the purpose of this episode, but there's no way I could put myself in your position and understand it. But I can listen to you tell me your story. I can try and learn. You can learn from me. And that human experience, which we desperately need right now, let's just be honest about it, to come together, to work towards it. That's what drives me. So it's not a distinct moment. I'll be honest with you, I've been very fortunate in my life, that I haven't had any traumatic situations, I would say, on the grand scale. I mean, I've had major injuries, but, keep those in perspective, right? I think it's just a draw to want to help people, to understand people, and that, this is a way for me to take action in a space that is so stigmatized, that how are we going to move forward as a culture together if we don't work through this? And look, things are changing for the better, but I think we're just scratching the surface, and I'm on a mission to change that.
Where do you think that came from? Like, is there someone in particular? I saw the little dedication you had for your dad and your book that we'll get into later. And I resonated with that because I have a really close relationship with my dad. Right. And so I think a lot of the work that I'm interested in now is a lot from experience of what I dealt with and trying to help people maybe not go through what I did or have the tools to go through what I did. But I think a lot of it too comes from like conversation and things I've had with not only my dad, but both my parents, that kind of have pushed me into the space and to do this and to have the courage to actually speak up. Is there somebody in particular that you kind of look at that sort of gave you sort of the motivation to learn and the motivation to be involved in coaching the way that you are and the motivation to sort of embrace people in the way that you do? Is there someone that comes to mind?
Yeah, look, my dad, my mother, and my older brother, right? That's the new nuclear family I was in, and they all influenced me in their own way. My mother was a midwife, a nurse her whole life, so I'm constantly seeing her help other people when they're giving birth to babies, right? So that was a major influence of watching her help people. My father is a great example. You bring him up, and I'll tell that story real quick. When I was 12, 13 years old, he retired, had early retirement. And he went through a metamorphosis in his life of changing the way he thought and breaking his family patterns. He was born in 1940, so he was kind of raised by that war generation and the post-war generation, and he was a little older when I was born. So I kind of a unique situation there. But he would discover things like love and how love works, and things about himself, and willing to be vulnerable, and not being a victim, and understanding, present moment awareness. And he would share all this with me on my rides to hockey or my grandmother's house or wherever we were going at the time. And again, being an impressionable young age, I was 13, 14, 15, I just absorbed this stuff like a sponge. So I was given a gift that at a young age, I'm watching my mother do all this amazing work to help people. My father's giving me these messages. He's changing. I watched him change and really enjoy life for the first time. And then my older brother just always led by example, whether he was speaking or he was getting good grades. He hates when I talk about him, but I mean, the truth is I'm not here without him. Mm-hmm. So I was blessed with a very safe family environment. You know, another one, I want to say this, every time I stepped on the ice, I'm talking practice, games, my father would look to me and say, I don't care what happens out there today. I love you no matter what.
Yeah.
He created an environment where I didn't fear failure. Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, that's incredible to me looking back on it. What a gift. Right. Now, I'll say that too, with not everybody gets a great family environment. Not everybody feels safe at home. Right. So I'm keenly aware of that. And, you know, it's kind of like a Spider-Man moment. Like, what am I doing if I'm not trying to share that with as many people as I can that want to hear it? Right. You know, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And then same thing. What if I'm not ready to receive that? I learn from people every day as well. So it kind of created an ecosystem for me mentally to kind of move forward and attack the space.
I think it's one of the topics that I wanted to hit on too with you was like the role of parents in athletics. I mean, we're talking about hockey here, but like just what you said, and through my experience too, like to be able to watch your parents treat you in that way and to bring up those conversations, like that goes so much further than the on ice skill. Like kids are so good, and so many kids, if you have the skill level, you're going to pick up on the new moves and how to do certain cutbacks and how to move a lot of that is just like inherent gifted physical ability to just pick up by watching. Right. But a lot of the things kids miss out on now is just how to treat one another, how to work hard, how to be confident, but sort of that idea of humility, and they just kind of miss out on those things. So I think for parents listening, like sometimes just take a step back and let your kid figure out the on ice stuff, be there for them when they need you. I think that's just a really good skill for parents to learn.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you both of this. I'm really blessed. I get to be on a show every week called Our Kids Play Hockey, and I work with two other parents, and they kind of mentor me because my son's a mite. So I'm kind of at the beginning of my parental journey with my kid. But we've got to do some amazing interviews, and I'm saying this live on the air, but I'm going to bring you both on that show at some point. But what's cool about it is this, man. We got to interview Tom Rennie and a lot of top people in the game, and we asked this question: what's the separator, right? And Riley, you'll know this, right? The separator at the top level is not so much skill, right? It's love of the game, type of person you are. Are you a humanitarian? Are you able to get along with your teammates? It's who you are separates you. Everybody at the NHL level is talented, right? So that was the first thing. And then you equate this back to parenting. Look, I'd say this, from 12 down, all the levels 12 and down, all you're trying to cultivate is a love of the game at that point. Yeah. All right. And all you're trying to cultivate is good human skill sets. Be a good teammate. Understand what effort means. Understand what failure means and how it can be used as a learning tool. I just talked about this the other day. When your kid scores or your kid makes a play or a bad play, do they look to you to share the moment with you, or do they look to you in fear? Mm-hmm. That's a telltale sign of what their priorities are. And you might not even mean to do that as a parent. There's no perfect parents. We all make mistakes. All right. But it's one of those things of, at 12 and down, I want to create a good human being first. The skills will come. All right. Especially when you go through puberty, someone's coming out of that better, someone's coming out of that worse. Right. And then when you get kind of up, I would say that 12 to 15 age is a little bit of a mid-range, and then 15 up. Now you can start looking at things a little bit more seriously. Maybe you are focusing on one or two sports instead of 7 or 8, which you should be doing at the young ages. Now the message just changed of, okay, you have a goal. You want to make the NHL. I'll never tell a kid he can't make the league. Never. Right. It's a dream. I don't have to support their dream, but I have to support the right to have a dream, right? And it's going to be hard. It's going to be work, and you may fail. There's so many life lessons that can be learned in that journey, even if you don't make it. And we all know the odds of making it. Okay. But to not try would be the crime. Mm-hmm. Right. And so, Riley, obviously you've been blessed with a full career, which is amazing. And you know this, you've done this journey, right? But the type of person you are is more important than the type of hockey player you are. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think parents have to remember that. Who are you creating? A great center, great defenseman, or a great person?
Yeah, no, for sure. I 100% agree.
That was wicked. Yeah, I can. My mind is an absolute circus right now because I want to touch on so many different points. I think the one thing that I wanted to bring it back to was, when you were a kid and you had this safe haven at home and you had all these outlets and you had so many people in your life that just truly cared, not about the result, but just about the process and about the journey. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you learned empathy and accountability at a very young age. And I think
Absolutely.
I think you definitely aged a little bit, older, I guess, when you were at that age. And that's a good thing. I was fortunate enough to coach, 11 and 12-year-olds this year. And I think, especially in Canada, we felt COVID a little bit harder, I think, in the sports space.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So coming into that space, I'd never coached before. I've had some amazing coaches in my life, and I've learned a lot from the coaches that I've had, and I wanted to try and, express that on these kids. But I think I also was able to see just the pure, fear in their eyes of, not having hope, not knowing if this is their last game, not knowing if everything's going to get shut down. And I think I wanted to touch on throughout all this, and especially COVID and sport world as of late, have you seen any parallels, I guess, between, parents, coaches, and players? I know there's obviously a big wide age gap on some levels, if it's 11 and 12-year-olds compared to your parents and coaches of 30 and 40-year-olds. But at the end of the day, is there a certain thing that I think we all need to try and work on? I think we all need to try and learn a little bit more. Is there one thing, or is it a couple things?
Well, I think it's a few things. I mean, look, this is how I look at what happened here. The pandemic affected everybody on the planet, right? And there's a few levels to this. One is, I think the big word is accountability, right? The pandemic didn't create anything that wasn't there in terms of who you are. It might have uncovered some things that are positive and negative, right? Look, for example, like the TV was not a positive during the pandemic, right? It's just us versus them, whatever that kind of manifest itself is. But you know what the truth is, guys? You go outside. My neighbors were great to me. I was great to my neighbors. Most people, not everybody, most people were kind and understanding and wanted to take care of each other. I think we missed a major opportunity in both countries with that, of just recognizing that. Another one, right? We had a vaccine within 2 years. Within 2 years, we really got this under control. Now, that's a long time. It took twice as long 100 years ago. So there are some clear things that happened here on a human level that we achieved that we have not celebrated together, which bugs the hell out of me, right? Because we're not in a time period where we can celebrate wins for whatever reason. We rely on fear and we dive into that. When I say accountability, though, and again, I'm not talking about any particular here, but I think there's a lot more finger pointing than pointing at themselves. Well, if this damn pandemic didn't happen, no, I'm sorry, that's not good enough, right? The pandemic did happen. It is happening, right? So how are you responding to it? I talked to you, and all three of us can relate to this, right? It's not about what happens to you. It's how you respond to it. That's what makes you who you are.
Yeah.
Right. That's what makes you who you are. Both of you are shining examples of this. Okay. So when I look at the pandemic, I see it uncovered a lot of people do not have the mental resolve, mental fitness, or the tools needed to do that. Now, you can take two approaches with that. You can be upset about it, point the finger, well, no one taught me, or we can take a step forward as a society and say, you know what? There's some glaring mental health issues in this countries, world, that we need to get control of, right? And look, suicide rates way up, not just in military and sports, in general, way up, right? And again, I don't want to get into it because it's a little dark. If you research suicide numbers, military, youth athletes, they will boggle your mind that nothing is being done on a grand scale about them. More people die in suicide in the military than die in combat, like a lot more. Right? We've obviously all seen the stories of youth athletes and collegiate athletes taking their own lives. And you know what we do? Oh, that's too bad. Move on. We're not facing this stuff head on. And I think that that's what the pandemic called for. Now, with that said, when the pandemic started, as adults, we had to survive in the way we could. We had to do the best we could. One of the reasons I wrote that book, which we'll get into, I'm not trying to drive us there was no guide for kids. Well, I mean, I can't imagine being 12 and being like, nope, you can't play. Sorry. Well, what do? I got to figure things out. I got to get food on the table. So one of the reasons we wrote that book, the children's book, is to tell people or tell kids, give them a guide of there's so much you can do when you can't skate, right? There's so much mental fitness, mental things you can do to stay involved, to be part of a community, to have a purpose. I would say this thing, and I'll throw it back to you guys. And I actually love to pick your brain on this too. I find that depression or depressive tendencies come when there's a lack of three things: lack of purpose, a lack of community, and just a lack of drive. Right? Like, so when you look at someone who's kind of lost their way, they do not have a purpose, they don't have a community, and they don't have an identity. Right?
And those three go so like they go hand in hand, right?
Right.
Like if you don't have a purpose, then you probably are sheltering yourselves, which then you're not involved in any sort of community.
Right.
So it's, I can resonate with those for sure.
Yeah. And I think even the community aspect as well, like with my clothing line there, I think people just long for community. Like people
Absolutely.
just long, and especially in an uncomfortable space like this, like I know exactly how they feel. At one point, did I want to enter this community? Did I want to enter the mental health space? Did I want to become vulnerable? Did I want to do this? No, not at all. But I think, really taking that first step and, even just joining a small little, whether it's my clothing line, whether it's a podcast, whether it's even if it's a community where you don't have a label that, you are a part of this community, as long as you feel like you're a part of it and you can resonate with something, it's so refreshing and it's so rewarding for people. And I think it's so hard for a lot of people to get to that space.
Right.
But yeah, like those three are huge. I mean, look, it's incredible.
Here's the key, guys, is that everybody listening, everybody, you too, we're not alone. Even if you're feeling alone, you're not alone. That's my clothing line name. Oh, well, there you go. I'm not trying to steal it from you. But it's true though, right?
Yeah.
That's where the community comes into it, is you're not alone, right?
Yeah.
And sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, that's perfect.
Like there. But it's one of those things of, community. Look, there's statistics. You can look this up. Human beings are not meant to operate by themselves. Introvert, extrovert, everything in between. We are meant to operate in groups. My favorite thing to talk about, everybody says we're more divided than we've ever been, right? I mean, I always kind of get a laugh out of that, because I'm like, I'm pretty sure things were worse in the 1860s, 1940s, 1920s. But the point is this: we're divided. Yes, I do agree. Into what? Into teams. It's my side versus your side. Now it's not great. It's not a good thing, but we're dividing into groups because we're meant to be together. So in a weird way, I find actually hope in that wow, we do want to come together. I'm on this mission to bring people together towards, we don't have to always agree on everything, but we have to understand we're working towards the common goal. I find when you ask most people a very broad question about a topic, they actually agree on the destination. They just don't agree on how to get to the destination, which, get this, that's okay. That's the beauty of having different points of view. And then the side effect of being divisive, though, is this mental health thing. And Ty, you talked about it, right? The uncomfortable conversation. Why are we so uncomfortable to have those conversations? It's because we have an unrational fear of failure, right? How do you learn? You fail, right? You guys all heard we've all heard it, right? I never lose, I win, or I learn. Kobe Bryant used to say, like, what is failure? Some days you win, some days you lose. You still got to live. We have to change the conversation on these things to get better together. That's the key. So, great point.
Yeah. Especially when there's such an easy access to like comparables and to see other people winning based off their social media page.
Oh, yeah.
When
human highlight reel.
When you really think about it, they're just promoting their wins. They're just struggling just like everyone else is. So
right.
I think we should jump in a bit to like kind of more sport related a bit. I think just like obviously a lot of the stuff we've talked about a lot about tools, like mental tools, and what you can kind of fall back on, and those leadership skills. Just in all of your experience, I guess, like how do you develop that in players? What are the conversations that you have that can kind of guide them to have that mindset to be successful?
It's a great question. Can I run you guys through the quick exercise that I do with them? It'll provide a lot of value, right? So there's basically two governing factors that govern everything that I do. And I try and introduce this to players, and it can expand well beyond this, but we don't have 6 weeks to together today. But I'll draw a circle on a board. little circle, and I'll draw a big circle. And then I'll ask the team, and I'm asking you too, right? The little circle is your circle of control. What do you actually have control over in your life? And hint is it's very few things. What would your answers be to that? The things you actually control.
Work ethic.
Oh,
number one.
Nice
This
tie.
is good.
The spot.
Oh, it's good. No, it's not. These aren't supposed to be hard, right? Work ethic, is one, right?
Ty was fired up there.
Ty, stay fired. Get the other ones, Ty. Good. Yeah, work ethic is one.
I'd say like the way you treat other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll say mentality, right? So,
Okay. Yeah.
for the most part,
Attitude.
you control your mind for the most part, right? And you can get better at that, but we do have control over our minds. And the third one is more physical. Things you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
What you put in your body, how you
Nutrition,
take care of your body.
Yeah.
That's it, guys. That's it. That's all you control in your life. That's it. And then the outer circle, I'll say, now tell me some things you don't control. Go ahead, just start shouting out.
Yeah, playing time, whatever else. Yeah.
Traffic, weather, the Kardashians, the standings, the other teams, the other scores,
Everything.
right? The president of the United States, the premier of Canada. You have no control, none, right? Unless you're working in those realms, right? So this is point one. I think most people spend more time focused on things they can't control than they can control. My first lesson is always only focus on the things you can control. And if you leave that circle, it's okay. That's okay. Bring yourself back in. I always ask myself, do I have control over the situation? So ice time is a great example. We're talking about sports here. I'm pissed off about my ice time. Okay, what do you control in this situation? Right? You got to make that little tiny circle your whole universe. It's scary at first because it's like, well, I don't control anything. I have no control. Like, it's scary. Make that little circle the big circle in your mind. The second half of this, and this is kind of the key that brings it all together. The past has already happened. The future has not happened yet. The present is reality. I have two kids. Their names are Logan and Alina. I love them more than anything on the planet, along with my wife. They're not here right now. You two are. You are my world at this moment, this present moment. I do not focus on the past, and I do not go too far in the future. I reflect on the past and I look to the future, but I live in the present moment as often as I can. I want to keep reiterating, this is not a perfect practice. I consistently leave the present and have to bring myself back in, and there's tools to do that, right? But the great example I always give is, have you both ever been reading a book and you read 5 pages and then you realize, wow, I didn't read any of that?
All the time.
Yes, all the time.
Where did you go? Right?
Yeah.
Like, you left this plane of existence for a moment and you literally went probably the past or the future. Your mind wandered, which is absolutely normal. I cannot express that enough. So coming back to the mental fitness side of things and working with players, I try and build up the reps and the exercises of, hey, come back to the present moment. Let's stay in the present moment. And again, the big kind of explosive moment I have with players is this. Most people live their lives in the past or the future worrying about crap they can't control. People are born and die having never been present and focusing on the things they control. That scared the hell out of me when I heard that the first time, or I realized that the first time. So my exercise with the player is, what control do you have over in this situation? Or do you have influence? There is a circle of influence too. And are you present? I always say this, 9 out of 10, it's not 100%. If you really focus in the moment, what's your biggest problem? You don't have one. Your problems are in the past or the future, right? And if you can get centered on what an impending problem may be, you can probably find a solution. Goalies know this. You can't be worried about the last goal and you can't be worried about the next goal. You got to be ready right now. Goalies typically are pretty good at this. Players sometimes struggle. Here's another just real quick sports one, right? Does the scoreboard matter in the game? Does the scoreboard have any value to you in the game, really?
I mean, at the present moment, I mean, you want to win at the end of the game, but kind of at the present moment, it doesn't really.
It's just a tally, right? I mean,
it shouldn't affect the way you play.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you should know what the score is. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But the scoreboard actually doesn't really matter until the game's final. That's when it's official. Right. Now, you may look at it and say, okay, we're up 4-2, we're down 4-2. In the moment, my tactics need to change a little bit. But how many times we're all hockey people here. How many times have you seen it? A team goes up 4-2 and they start playing defense to protect their lead, and they start sitting back, and all of a sudden it's 4-3, and then and then it's tied, and then their minds are not there.
The 2-goal lead's the worst lead in
dreaded.
Right.
That's such a stupid quote.
Right. Yeah. Think about how
no, it's not that bad. You're up
any lead sucks in hockey if it's not yours, right? But like think about the mental collapse that happens there. That you start thinking, you start playing differently, right? And look, Riley, you know this. If to be successful in the NHL, you don't take your foot off the gas. Doesn't matter what the score is. You can't sit back anymore. Not since the 2-line passing came out, right?
Yeah.
Right. So the practice of being present, I think life works a lot like that. You got to be present. And like I said, there's a lot of methodology to that. It's a little different for different people. Like I'm a big fan of quick 1 to 2 minute. I call them PQ reps, but just focusing on an object really intently for 2 minutes to recenter yourself. Yeah. Breathing, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just slowing things down for a minute. Which Ty, again, sometimes you get so stubborn, your brain, your internal, like, I'm not doing that. You got to fight that, judgments and saboteurs. But it's all about practice, guys, at the end of the day. And again, coming back to the mental fitness moniker, I practice this stuff all the time. My mind wanders all the time. It's completely normal. But the more I practice it, the more I find myself able to get control, the more I find myself able to get present. If I'm having a bad week, knowing I'll get through it, right? It's just that fortitude of experience, for lack of a better word, and enjoying that journey and not punishing myself when I have a tough time with it. I always say permission to be patient. Yeah. I don't have to have it figured out today.
It's that acknowledgement too, right? Like to actually stand back and be like, okay, this is how I'm being. And it's like a light bulb goes off, especially on the bench. Like when there's such you get like only so many shifts, and you have those opportunities to sit back when you sit down, be like, okay, that shift didn't go the way I planned. But like, I like that exercise too. I've been doing naturally as of late, just staring at a small object, and your eyes just want to go somewhere else. Like your brain wants to tell you to stop. But like just to actually do that and breathe, you can almost feel yourself just sort of like
it's
become more present. And I love that. How do you, from an individual standpoint, I don't want to say it's easy, but it's teachable. You can go one-on-one, but then when you have to regulate a whole team, I think what I've seen at the NHL level, it's hard for the head coach to manage each and every player, which I feel like could be such a valuable skill to have. And it could just be little 5-minute meetings, right, once every 2 weeks or whatever, just to gauge where each guy's at. Because you go into a team and like if you go into, like when I went into Pittsburgh, you have Crosby, Malkin, Letang. If those 3 guys are happy, our team does well. But you also got to remember that there's 6 bottom forwards that want to play. They want to feel confident out there. They want to be productive. They want to chip in as well as they can. Right. And if you forget about them, they're not going to do that. Right. So I think sometimes it's hard for coaches to manage everybody, but I got to think there's ways around that. And maybe you can speak on that.
Absolutely. And look, this is my specialty, and I'll put this out to the ether right now. My goal is to one day work with an NHL team on this, right? Because I think that great coaches know their gaps and they fill in those gaps. And the truth is, not every great head coach can be a great people person all the time. Yeah. And I think it's important that, and this could be assistant coaches. I mean, it could potentially go to a captain, although I think that's a lot of responsibility. But I think every team should have somebody there that really looks at the team as a whole. Now, the way I do that and the way I work with teams is it starts from day one. We establish quickly, what does the word trust mean to this team? Everybody has a slightly different definition of that word. It is the keystone of any relationship you have in your life. So if you don't identify trust in the locker room right away, you're going to have issues. I identify how communication should work. I identify what does the word accountability mean. Now, again, in an NHL locker room, you're going to have some pretty great definitions of this. You get down to youth sports, they might not have even heard that word before. But establishing these kind of cornerstones of this is what it is to be part of this family and this team. These are what these words mean to us. And then the next part is this, and this is where I feel things changing on this. But when I started on my mission with this, I got a lot of eye rolls. I think 3 things need to be present for a championship culture to exist. One is talent. You have to have talent, comparable talent to the league, right? We'll use Pittsburgh as an example since you brought it up. Clearly have talented players. You have to have tactics, because great talent cannot overcome great tactics. I'm sorry, bad tactics. Excuse me. You don't want to have good tactics are a good thing. Great talent cannot overcome bad tactics. The third thing, this is my belief, is a team bond. Yeah. You have to have a bonded team. You look at any cup team, there's a good chance that team's pretty bonded by the time they're winning that cup. I remember when Pittsburgh won their second of the back-to-back, I believe their fourth line was one of the best ever, right? They had clearly defined roles. They understood what they needed to do. They were a big piece of that. And although Crosby won the Conn Smythe, nobody could look at that team and not say the bottom six were just as important as the top six, even though I hate those terms, right? So when I say those things, tactics, talent, and a team bond, and then coaches go, yeah, that's great. I need that. So how often should I do this team bond thing? And I look at them and I say, well, it's a third of the puzzle. So 33.3% of the time should be spent on it. What, you crazy? I can't spend that much time. And I go, listen, you can obviously put it into a lot of the things that you're doing, but having weekly team building exercising, having weekly team conversations, letting your captain, enabling your captain, your senior leadership to run conversations, letting the guys get that stuff going, talking, working together pays huge dividends, humongous. And I'm going to say it again, winning is not possible without it, especially at the highest levels. Now, some teams organically do bond more than others, but why would you take that chance, right? Yeah. Just institute it and find ways to bring your group together and common purposes. And look, you don't have to go back far. I mean, you look at the 19 Blues, right? They had a clear mission. They were the worst team halfway through the season. I think her name was Layla, right? Yeah. The girl they bonded around. Colorado had something like that recently. All these great teams have these kind of these great team bonds and these great team moments of this is how we move forward together. I think teams that institute that or find the people to bring that in are going to find a lot more success moving forward. And at the youth levels, I just did a full year of mite hockey, and I didn't want to. I did it because of COVID, and they needed someone. And I said, okay, my only stipulation is I need to do team building with these 8-year-olds once a week. And they go, you can't do team building with 8-year-olds. Guys, they were better than the adults. All right. And they got really bonded. So life lessons, right? These are things that are important for life. So I'm getting excited talking about it, if you can't tell.
No, I think that's
those three, I think we think about it, but we never obviously put that trio together. But I kind of want to go back, and this has been a topic in my life that I've not battled with, but I've definitely had the questions. Goal setting. We talk about being present. We talk about, players always kind of looking towards the future, always looking towards the past. And, I didn't meet that goal that game. I didn't, I need to be on pace for this goal. I need to make sure that I'm doing this. How, as a player, or what kind of advice do you give to players or even coaches, parents who many times in my youth hockey, you start the year, you have a sheet, what are your 3 main goals, and it's usually win a championship, have this amount of points or whatever it is. How do you ultimately find that balance of setting goals as a team and individually, while also being able to stay present and focus in on what's going on with you and your team at that moment?
It's a fantastic question, bud. And I've got answers for you. So, ever since I was about 14 or 15 years old, I've made 5-year goal lists, right? And I put some lofty stuff on there. And I there's been times I'm writing these goals thinking I'll never accomplish that. I've accomplished everything I've ever put on a piece of paper. And I'm even saying that I'm amazed, right? But I put it out there. Now, how does this work with being present, right? You put the goal out there. That's my long-term goal. Then you get present with how you attack the goal. So in 5 years, I want this to happen. What can I do today to get to that? And you can break it down by, you can do this however you want, but it all comes back to what is the next step to take? What is my next step towards accomplishing that goal? And how do I be present while I'm doing that? So that's a personal goal setting form. Teams, coaches should absolutely sit down with their players once trust is established. I want to make sure I say that, right? I start with trust. And you should have a goal setting session. How many goals, how many assists, plus minus, Corsi, whatever you want those things to be. You should also be asking what motivates you, what demotivates you, what's important to you, right? These are other questions that matter when you're setting goals, right? And then keeping the player accountable to those goals throughout the season of what have you done today to work towards this goal. It's not meant to be a carrot you hold or something where if you don't hit this goal, I'm not giving you your signing bonus or I'm not going to give you a contract. the power of negative reinforcement. I'm not a big fan of that, right? I'm a fan of, hey, you said you wanted to score 20 goals this season. We're a little bit behind. What can our coaching staff, what can I do? What can the assistant, what can your captain do to work towards that goal, right? That's where my mind goes. And then I'll also do a team goal setting session to create accountability, right? I walk into a locker room. What do we want? What do we want as a team? We want to win, coach. That's great. Everybody wants that, right? Never walked into a locker room. A team goes, we want to come in 4th or 8th and barely make the playoffs. Like nobody says that, right? So you have to create the goals of who are we going to be on a night by night basis? What are other teams going to say about us when they leave our building? That's a question I'll ask, right? What are the words that define us? Where do we actually want to finish on the league table and the standings this year? Where do you think we can be? I create that and I let the players fill it out to create the accountability of them of, together we're going to accomplish these goals. So individually, myself, I've created goals for myself of where I want to be. From a team standpoint, let's look at the season. Let's look at the things we can do on the day-to-day to accomplish those goals. And then as a team, what do we want to accomplish together? You've created a culture of accountability once you've done these things, right? And a learning environment where it's not that failure is accepted, but it's looked at differently, okay? If I mess up, I want to learn. We have these goals. We're going to get to them together, right? I always say this as a coach. If I do my job right, I don't have to coach that much at the end of the year. I'm just going to be on the bench and the guys will really take care of it themselves, or the ladies, right? That's what I try and create. That's how it all fits in. So when I say be present, look, I'm not a monk, all right? I'm probably never going to be a monk. I think they're present all the time. I have goals and aspirations. It comes back to what can I do in the present moment to help achieve or go towards those goals without maximum judgment. If I don't do this, I'm a failure. Enjoying the journey. We've all heard amazing athletes say, what do you miss the most? Well, I miss the journey. I miss the locker room. I miss these things. You got to enjoy it while you're doing it, or what's the point? But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I respect that. I really like that answer just because I think one of my favorite quotes talks about, how I've mentioned it probably multiple times on this, but, mental health isn't a battle to be won. And I think, as athletes, we are constantly in the battlefield and we're constantly thinking to ourselves that we need to win this battle. And I think
Right.
it does parallel with mental health, just in the sense of, mental health is excuse my language, but it's a fucking battle a lot of the time.
It can be.
But
Yeah.
I think, learning to appreciate the process of it and learning to embrace that, there's going to be failures, there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. And, being able to understand and recognize that you can move forward when these things happen. So yeah, I really like that answer. I don't know if Riley had anything before we kind of hop into the book.
Yeah, I got one more. Is my connection's fine? You guys are
I can
good
hear
with
you.
me?
Yeah.
I can hear you. The video's a little bit off, but
You look like a Van Gogh painting at times,
Yeah.
but you're making it work.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. We can edit that little part out, but so yeah, I had one question actually. I love that structure of goal setting, and I like to use the word with my life coach, creating a vision.
Mm-hmm.
I think vision's a good word to kind of separate that long-term goal setting compared to short-term. How do you create consistency in that, where it's like, okay, I achieved my short-term goal for this week or this month, or I did that consistency? I think especially once you reach those high levels, consistency is the hardest thing. Is there anything that your athletes sort of revolved around that aspect of consistency?
Well, I think it comes down to how you define consistency, and I think some of it comes down to gratitude too. And this goes to both what Ty said, Riley, and what you asked is that, we talked about the battle, right? I'm really in a place where I like to be humble about, wow, I have the opportunity to compete. Right. And I hope you understand where I'm going with this. It's like, I blame, elegantly. Right. So if something goes wrong in my life, or if I'm feeling a little lost, I go at it pretty kind of curious of, okay, what's my lesson going to be from this? Right. Or what am I going to learn from this? Now, in terms of the consistency of goal setting, I think hopefully you guys have seen this. People have asked me, and a lot of athletes, how do you stay motivated all the time? I'm not motivated all the time. That's not realistic.
Yeah.
Nobody
Mm-hmm.
is motivated all the time.
Yeah.
What sets people apart is that they do things when they're not motivated, or they stay consistent when they're not motivated. So I think part of this also comes back to that, look, every 5 years I'll set a new goals list, and I'll take my time doing it. I don't feel like on the 31st day of the 5th year I have to do it, or the last day of the year. But it's a process I believe in, I buy into, I talk to people. If I feel like I'm drifting a little bit, I said this before, I give myself permission to be patient with myself, right? Especially if I'm not feeling motivated. I've kind of learned that, look, the motivation will come back. I trust myself with that. And then I just have to be a little patient. And then there's tools, right? I told you, going out walking, exercising, meditating, finding something to look at to kind of get back into the right mindset. Music is a big one for me. I've got songs that trigger different emotional responses. Some of them happy, some of them sad, right? But I know the tools for me that allow me to get to where I need to be. I think for every person that's a little bit different, right? So I think discovering those tools, and again, going back to mental fitness as the wording, understanding what the trigger points are for you, or the gateways are for you to kind of re-enter a mindset that you want without judgment. I got to keep saying that. That's such a big part of mental health.
Yeah.
That, you don't have to judge yourself. If you don't have it right now, that's okay. It's okay. Right. But that's how I stay consistent is it's more about the times I'm not feeling great than the times I am feeling great. And knowing, again, not to steal it, knowing I'm not alone, right? I'll go talk to family. Another one I do, guys, is if I'm feeling really, really down, I'll try and go find someone to help. That always pulls me out of it. I always feel better. It's the same thing like when you give a gift on Christmas or Hanukkah, you feel better. So I just know when I'm really in touch with my tool sets when I'm dealing with adversity. And I think that's the key to consistency. You got to find what works for you and give yourself permission to be patient with them. That's a great question.
Yeah. I like that acknowledgement of when you're not feeling the most motivated. It's like, what can you get out of yourself that is acceptable? And you will look back and be like, oh, I'm really glad I did that. Maybe I didn't have what I would have on a Friday summer workout when I know the weekend's coming, but I did it. I went to the gym, whatever it is, did it. I'm happy I did. And now I can keep moving forward.
I'll tell you guys, it's a really quick story. This is why I said it's so important that coaches ask players what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them. You have to ask both, right? And I remember we had a player in the pros coaching in England, and he was in a slump, a good player, skilled player. And he was in a slump, and he says, I'm just not feeling it. So, well, what motivates you? And he goes, well, I really miss my girlfriend. And I said, okay, interesting. So we flew his girlfriend over from Canada, and I'll just, without any details, his point production went through the roof, right?
That's awesome.
I became the leading point scorer on the team. Now, all we had to do was ask. And again, that's just how he was motivated at the time, right? But my point is that, again, it's not always that simple, but whether it's money, friends, ice time, I mean, you got to know what it is and then help that person work towards that goal. Now, that for him, it was a snap of the fingers, top goal scorer on the team that year, right? If it's ice time, and again, this might not be the head coach's job, right? It's okay, who can work with you, or what are you doing to earn the extra ice time? What steps can we take together? No guarantees, right? Or what is your role with a lack of ice time? You get 4 shifts a game, you play a role. Does that player know his or her role? Would you ever go to a job without a job description and just sit there? Right? We do that to players all the time. Like, you're 4th line center. What's my job? You're a 4th line center. What is that? That person has a job. So anyway, I get passionate about this stuff, but that's man, you're right on.
Yeah. No, I love that. Ty, you want to get into the when hockey stops?
Yeah. We'll kind of wrap up in these next couple of minutes, but when hockey stops is obviously a main idea that we want to touch on.
Yeah.
I think for me, I had one specific question. When hockey stops is obviously about that one specific player. But as we've touched on before, Canada definitely was a lot more sidelined, I think, in the COVID world, and a lot of youth, were lost. I think the biggest thing now is trying to be able to help them create that balance of staying engaged off the ice and also on the ice. How do they do that? From your perspective, how do these youth who live and breathe hockey during the winter, and honestly, it seems like every month now, how do they stay mentally engaged, which hopefully helps them stay physically engaged in preparation for whenever they can get back on the ice.
Right. And this is going to like walk us through everything we talked about today, which is perfect. When we wrote this book, again, it was originally motivated by the fact the pandemic stopped hockey for everybody. But the truth is hockey stops for people all the time, right? Injury, accidents, things happen. So in our book, the main character, Leon, breaks his wrist. He's having the season of his life and he breaks his wrist. And that's it. Season's done. There's no miraculous comeback. His season's over. And his team's heading towards the championship. So what does he do? Well, first thing is he falls into a little bit of a depression. And he has a father that helps him through this and a mother that helps him through this. And he discovers throughout the book that although he can't play right now, he has his teammates that care about him deeply. He has that community. There's other ways to be involved in the game. He steps on the bench to assist his coach in the book. He learns things about the game. He starts seeing the game differently. His injury created that opportunity. He starts shooting with one hand in his garage. By the way, this is a lot of this is based off a true story. I tore my shoulder when I was 17, missed my whole senior year of high school, and lost a lot of my college looks at that time. And these are some of the tools I relied on, right? So shooting with one hand in his garage, pucks, and his arm gets stronger as he learns to do that. Other things too, like reading about the game, writing about the game. When I was a kid, there was no YouTube. I used to go to rental stores and look for VHS tapes of the game just so I could watch something. He learns to see the game. And the idea is that by the end of the book, he has created more tools for himself through that adversity than if he had been playing to begin with, which comes back to the point we said earlier. It's not what happens to you, it's how you respond to it. So the story, and I have it here, not to be promotional about it, but the story is for really any age, but specifically that kind of 6 to 12-year-old, as a guide of here's some great tools to deal with adversity, how to boost your mental fitness and your mental health at a younger age so that you have these tools later. There's no way I'm sitting here talking to you guys today if I didn't horrendously tear my shoulder when I was 17, right? I am so thankful, and I mean that event happened to me, although unbelievably mentally and physically painful at the time, right? I'm so thankful that it happened, because it put me on this pathway and this platform. That's one of many events in my life. But I was gifted with a lot of the tool sets at a young age to know how to do that. This book is me sharing that with parents, players, and youth athletes.
Yeah, I think that can be so helpful too, because if things go the opposite way for you, you tear up your shoulder, there could be a big issue of resentment that you gain, and now you look at hockey in some evil way, and then that can kind of be contagious into how you treat people and how you treat, and then it can be a bad snowball effect. So I think it's great. There's so many good things that can come from the game of hockey, and sometimes you just got to look a little deeper and provide people with a little bit of perspective that can kind of change what their situation is. I think that's great. And like I said earlier, I just love the little dedication you have there, that first few pages for your father. And I think you said your sister as well, or was it your sister?
My brother,
in there too,
my mother and my brother. Yeah, I've written several books.
Your brother.
I finally got all of them through dedication, which was a goal of mine. I got all of them, but no, this one was special for my father. Those rides to those games, and again, I'll tell you, look, your identity doesn't have to be as a hockey player. You're more than just a hockey player. And, your identity is who you are and how you treat people and how you respond. And then on top of it too, look, youth sports, this isn't just hockey. Youth sports are a vehicle for people's growth as human beings. And if we're not using them for that, we're failing, right? It's not about just being the star, whatever. It's a vehicle for growth. Athletes face more adversity than non-athletes. That's a fact. So if you're not using that tool, that vehicle to learn how to deal with adversity as you go on, you said it can have a complete opposite effect. You start identifying wrong, you can slip into negative thoughts. Those can slip into addiction or worse, right? So giving these tools out now at a young age, that's really the job. That's really the goal of youth sports for me. It's not about winning the Mite AAA Elite Selects Championship, or whatever you want to call it, right? It's hey, did you have fun out there today? That's my goal. If he smiles at the end, it's a good day. But that's why we wrote it, man. And like I said, it's our kind of gift to the youth hockey parents and youth hockey players. And I'll be honest with you, I've been blown away by the support it's gotten. I wasn't expecting to get some of the resounding reviews that we got from some pretty high profile people. So yourself included, both of you, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of course. Well, Lee, I think we probably could chat for another hour at least, but I mean, we can't thank you enough for your time. We can't thank you enough for what you do in this space. For anybody listening, please go check out his book. I know Ryan Whitney had a glowing review, so I think, I mean, what you do, it's commendable. It's amazing. It's much needed. And I think the way you come about it and the perspective you have towards it is a lot better in helping destigmatize the mental health space and kind of, what especially these past couple of years have been. So I can't thank you enough again, Lee. And
Hey, look, thank you guys. Look, I appreciate the opportunity to even run with you guys. Right. And look, you guys are champions in this space too. And the truth is it's a big enough space for all of us. And if we're not working together on it, what are we doing? Right. So I want to thank you back for all the work you guys are doing.
Well, we appreciate that.
Well, thanks for joining us, Lee. And maybe down the road, we'll have to do this again and see what's coming up for you in the future and have some more good conversation.
Yes, sir.
All right, Lee, take care and we'll chat soon.
Have a great one, everybody.